After cutting off the old and gluing on the new bumpers, fixing that up a bit and putting it into some primer, I let that dry for a while and then started sanding it down and smooth with some 2000 grit sandpaper. This is to make it absolutely as smooth as it possibly can be before I apply the color coat, because the smoother the primer, the smoother the end result will be, and the less orange peel should be visible in the final clear coat. As far as the color goes for this one, I chose a Ferrari yellow, not even gonna bother pronouncing that. It's a two-stage paint with a base of yellow and then a top of a pearl yellow to make it really pop and stand out. Now the downside to this is that the yellow covers really poorly, even if the finish before was white or silver. In my case it's gray primer. It would still take a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of thin coats to get it to properly cover. Now in my case, as mentioned, I just did a gray primer with a white or a silver base. The yellow would be a bit brighter and it should cover a bit quicker, but I'm not really sure if that would matter that much in this case. So I just started applying the yellow and ended up applying about 5 coats of this. Now the importance, if you know when you're gonna have to apply 5 coats like I am in this case, is to go really thin, as if you go really thick on the first coat, the second coat might attack it, it might still be drying, and you will probably get impatient and ruin the entire model. So go slow, very thin coats on this, and take your time. So after applying this first light coat, it's really important to take your time and let it dry properly. At least 10 to 15 minutes. If you could and want to do 20 minutes, that's also totally fine. Maybe even up to 30 minutes would not do any harm either. So please be aware, take your time, as you're gonna cover it in a lot of coats after this one. So letting that first coat dry and the second coat on top of that dry as well will improve the end result. It takes a lot of time for this color to cover, so be aware if you're gonna paint a yellow car that it is a lot of hard work and a lot of patience. Now, as I mentioned, I applied about 5 coats in total, letting each coat dry about 15-20 minutes in between, then moving on to the second coat, the third, the fourth, and finally the 5th coat. Now, I'm obviously not going to show applying 5 coats of this, so after this second coat, we're going to skip 3 more and move on to the second stage of this paint job. As mentioned, we skipped a couple of steps, let the 5th coat dry properly for at least 25 to 30 minutes, an hour would be good as well, and moved on to the second stage of this paint job, which is a clear yellow pearlescent paint. Now it's applied basically the same way as the first couple of coats were, but then a bit thicker, a bit quicker, as it can handle it a lot better than the yellow, and it will cover a lot quicker as the base coat is already applied. Now pretty much nothing can be seen of this in the video due to the lighting, the color, and just the time of day. So I'm not even going to bother showing the second application of this, as you cannot see any difference whatsoever. Just going to finish this coat, set it aside, and move on to the clear coat. After finishing up this first coat, I let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes, then applied a second coat in the same way as I did the first coat, then set the body aside for about 50 to 60 minutes. You could just let it dry overnight and then move on to applying the clear coat. With the clear coat mixed and ready to the measurements according to the packaging, I applied the first light coat. Now before applying that, I just blew over the entire body with some air to get rid of any dust that might have fallen onto it and double check everything. With that all done, I could just move on to that first light tack coat. After applying the first coat, just set the body aside for 5 minutes and move on to the second coat, a bit thicker, and making sure you cover everything again, and in this case also checking if you're getting rid of any of the orange peel that might have shown up from the first layer. You could decide to go for a third coat, maybe even a fourth coat, but if you go with that many coats, you can't go that heavy on the second coat and not even on the first coat, as you're going to completely fill up all of the panel lines. So keep that in mind when doing this. If you're going to do it in 2 coats, go a bit heavier on the first and finish it off in the second, making sure you get rid of all the orange peel. And if you're going to go for 3 or 4 coats, just don't go that thick on the first couple of coats, as you will fill up all the panel lines as mentioned, and that's not a good look for anyone. So in this case, I ended up doing 2 coats and being completely happy with the end result.